I want to welcome Mr. Rick Schmitt to my show. He's the culinary director and chef here at the Westminster Towers. Rick, I want to thank you so much for allowing me to come interview you and pick your brain about what it's like or what it takes to become a chef. So for the viewers that don't maybe know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from?
Sure. My name is Rick Schmitt. Like you said, I was born in Columbia, South Carolina. In 1970, woohoo! Showing my age a little bit here.
Yeah.
I was raised a little bit at Chapin, Kingstree, South Carolina. About third grade, ended up back in Columbia and finished high school in Columbia. Moved around the Southwest a little bit with my fiance at the time, and actually got married. Had my first child, and then went in the Air Force. Spent 4 years in the Air Force working on ICBMs, and then came back to South Carolina, and have pretty much been back and forth South Carolina through the 90s. Yeah. Then about year 2000, I decided, you know what, I'm going home. Right. And came back to South Carolina and been here ever since. Oh, okay. So it's been a magical journey across the Southwest and the Midwest, because I was stationed in South Dakota, and just all over, enjoying life at that time, of course. And then finally decided it's time to settle down and get a career, and finally figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up, and that was to be a chef.
Oh, well, absolutely. Yeah. Well, great. What made you choose that type of career to go in out of all the other careers you could have gone? Well,
it kind of happened by chance. I started out working in kitchens when I was about 11 years old, actually, washing dishes, bussing tables, learning little prep things. And by the time I was 15, I was actually helping run a kitchen at night. And then I tried everything in my powers to get away from it. And then, like I said, went in the military. Got out the military, went to work in a kitchen. Got out the kitchen, went to work in manufacturing as a quality control technician. Got tired of that, went back to a kitchen. Right. It was back and forth to kitchens for quite a while. And then I finally decided, you know what? Maybe that's where I belong. Right. And then not only that, I spent some time in Lubbock, Texas as a GM for IHOP, and it burned me out pretty good. And then I took some time off from kitchens again and restaurants. And when I moved back to South Carolina, entered the retirement community world, and I was a line cook for a couple of years, and then I was promoted by an administrator that I have a lot of respect for to a culinary or executive chef, and ran the department. And it was a faith, and then he moved to a faith-based company, and I pretty much found, he called me and said, hey, look, I need you to come help me out here. So I did. And that was 20 years ago. And I'm still working in faith-based retirement communities as an executive chef. It brings a lot of meaning to your life. And I feel it's pretty much that was my calling. And that's kind of why I kept bouncing back and forth. I didn't know that at the time. Right. But now, I've pretty much been in retirement communities, involved pretty heavily in different aspects of the culinary world, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit. But it's where I belong. Right. So, and I feel comfortable, and I make good money doing what I do, and it's good for my family, and I just stick with it.
Now, I know I can barely fry an egg, right?
There's 100 different ways to cook an egg. Yeah,
and you're the man to talk to about it. Yep. But as far as formal training, can you jump into that as far as
actually chef training? I never really had any formal chef training. I kind of had the on-the-job training. I worked with a lot of really good chefs in the restaurant industry when I was bouncing back and forth. But I did decide that if I was going to stay in retirement communities, there were certain aspects of that you need certification for. So I became what's called a certified dietary manager,
right,
and a certified food protection professional. So I have a dual license through the Association of Nutrition and Food Service Professionals, which is a nationwide professional association. And that's a pretty difficult certification to actually get. But I thought it would be easier for me having the background that I had in food safety and also the background in management, because that's two of the components.
Right.
The third component that you have to have with that certification is dietetics.
Right.
So I had to work really close with dietitians and learn the nutritional side of the business,
right, basically. Right.
So I've been a CDM, CFPP is what it's called, since 2003. Since about 2005, I've been on the state chapter board. Started as a lobbyist for the organization, got a couple of regulations into the regulation books here in South Carolina. And I'm currently the president of the state association. And this is my 5th term as president. So I've been very active, and that's kind of how I give back, is mentoring new CDMs coming up in the ranks and coming up and just trying to help share my knowledge.
Right,
so,
right. Yeah. And, you know, the whole gist of my show is to motivate someone.
Right.
And we're talking about success. And, you know, just hearing your words will obviously motivate someone that maybe wants to, wants to get into the career path that you are in and become a chef. And they just may not have that drive or that push, and they just may need to hear those words from someone else to push them. So thank you for giving that information.
Sure.
And I know we're going to dive a little bit more deeper into different things. So what was did you have any fears out there before you got into this?
I think my biggest fear was, am I going to be happy doing it? Am I going to be happy as a chef, or is this just another one of those times where I'm going to end up somewhere else? But I really have been content with it. I have a great passion for food. I have a great passion for people. I've always been a people person. I think I attribute that mostly to my father. He was a real big people person. And you know, I enjoy what I do. I enjoy the work that I do because I get to see in the retirement communities, I get to see the effects of what I do every day. Right. I get to see the smile on the same faces every day. I get to get good feedback, whether it's good or bad. And you know, I lead great teams, and it brings me a lot of personal satisfaction. Right. You know, it's different when it's just out there for the money, but when you're getting personal satisfaction out of what you're doing and you're doing what you enjoy, there's nothing wrong with that. Right. You know?
And we talked about some of your fears, but did you ever experience any failures that people can, you know, your words can help someone maybe work through that may be going through some stuff?
We're going to get deep here. I was going through a rough patch with my first marriage, actually, and started dating some of my employees, and I probably shouldn't have done that.
I totally get it.
So I kind of learned the hard way there, and almost had to start over again because of it. So you have to be really careful about your friendships and the things that you do, especially in a management position, because it can come back to bite you. Right. And it did. It came back and bit me pretty hard. I was given the opportunity to either resign or be fired, and it was Friday the 13th. Right. Imagine that. But you know, I bounced back from that, and that was about 25 years ago. So, you know, it's one of those things where you learned your lesson. Don't touch that again. Exactly. You know? So,
And you just gave some great examples of some of your failures, and you know how we all know how that goes. Oh yeah. Like you said, but. Coming from your failures, what would you say has been your greatest accomplishment as becoming the chef?
Honestly, it's day-to-day life. Just knowing that I'm going to affect somebody's life every day. I've been through a lot of leadership training. I've mentored 7 or 8 people through their career. It's knowing that I make a difference, and that's daily. So that's I can't say any more about that really.
Right. Now, are you the only chef in your family, or did you follow?
I am. Oh. My brother tried his hand at it for a little while. He actually worked with me in a restaurant many years ago. This was probably the late 80s or so, and he found out very quickly he didn't want to do it. I'm the only chef in my family. I've got a couple of kids. I have 7 children, and they're all grown, and 4 grandchildren. But 2 of them swear up and down they want to be a chef, and I'm like, you really need to know what you're getting into, because it's not all fun and games. It's not like the Food Network,
right.
And I'm glad the Food Network's there because people are more open to chefs and the culinary world now than they used to be. But it's a limelight, and there's a lot of hard work that goes into what folks do, and there's a lot of stress involved at times. So those are things that anybody really needs to take into account.
Right, just the reality of it.
Just the reality of it. It's not bam all the time.
Right.
It's a lot of hard work. And a lot of late days and a lot of late nights and a lot of planning, and everything has to be particular. And the public can get annoying. Right. They want things. They're paying for it. They want things a certain way, and you have to be successful at that. So just know what you want when you get out there, and just know that what you see on TV is not what it is.
Exactly, that is not reality.
It's not reality.
It's there to sensationalize things.
Exactly,
and it's there to give you a fantasy.
Right,
but. Like you said,
there's a reality behind the door.
Like your brother.
Like my brother. He decided, nope, I'll be a welder.
Now, I've tasted the food here, coming out here. And obviously, it's really good food. Tasted your food.
Yep.
By me tasting your food, how would you distinguish yourself from other chefs that are out there?
Oh, I would say that my style of cooking is Southern elegance. Classical Southern food with a little bit of this and a little bit of that, a little bit of jazz, and I like things simple and elegant, and my customers tend to be on that same page. More is not always better,
right?
And flavors, they blend a certain way, so you have to be careful. Don't overpower things. Taste your food when you're cooking it.
Right.
That's one of the biggest things that I deal with on a daily basis, even in my healthcare center, is you're going to serve puree food. You need to taste it.
Right.
Okay. It needs to taste good. So, because that's the whole goal, is to make people happy, not to make them angry.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And have you ever experienced any mistakes with making food for someone or a group of people that you actually learned from? That you wished you...
I haven't myself, but I've been places where mistakes have been made. I have been to places where a dessert was made with salt instead of sugar.
Wow.
And that was pretty disgusting. I've been at places where they've served fried chicken at the buffet and it was bloody, and so they didn't cook it long enough. Those are mistakes that I tend to look for by tasting and by checking temperatures and things like that before my clientele receives their food.
Right. And you keep I keep
a thermometer on me all the time. Yes, there's digital ones out there, but I trust the dial ones better.
Old school.
Old school. I like old school work. So it's one of those things where you just got to pay attention to stuff, and you have to instill that in your employees as well. So.
Right. Now, going through all the training that you've had, the certifications and all that, and when you made that decision to become a chef, did you ever face any adversities, like from maybe family members, friends, or anyone out there that may have told you, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to become a chef? You can't do this. You can't do that. And we all face those type of things. Like I faced it when I started my business, motivational speaking business. we all have it. Some people don't, but I've experienced it, and I know how I got through some of that stuff. Have you ever faced anything like that?
I think the adversities that I've faced have not been so much from family, but from friends. And friends that were really on a nowhere track themselves.
Exactly.
And, you know, it's like, how can you tell me that I'm going nowhere when you're nowhere already?
Exactly.
You know, so that's the kind of adversity that I've had to deal with. And you know, I don't pay attention to it.
Exactly.
You know, I just don't. I know where I'm headed.
Right.
If I have questions, I know who to contact. I have a very, very broad support group with the Dietary Managers Association. Well, now the Association of Nutrition and Food Service Professionals. Of course, they had to make it a big, long mouthful. But but anyway, you know, that's 350,000 other people just like me across the country.
Right.
I'm very close with all the state chapter leaders, just about. You know, so you know, it doesn't bother me.
Right.
If you got your beliefs, you got your beliefs. But guess what? I'm the one sitting here with a nice job.
Absolutely.
And I'm the one that sees the benefits in what I do, and I know where I'm going.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And bouncing from those adversities, and obviously talking about success, how do you define success?
I find success as getting the job done. Getting the job done. It may not be pretty all the time, but if you got the job done and the people were happy on the other end, it was successful.
Absolutely.
You know, in my own life, if I put dinner on the table and I've still got cable and gas and lights, that's successful.
Exactly. You don't have to be a millionaire.
You don't have to be a millionaire. You just got to be comfortable.
Exactly.
You know, so.
Do you think there's some type of a formula or a pattern or something to becoming successful?
You have to be persistent. You have to learn from your mistakes. And you have to know that you have to have a passion for what you're doing. My father always said, be good at what you do and do what you're good at. And I try to live by that every day. That's actually my signature in my emails, you know. So, you know, it's one of those things that I live daily.
Right.
Just don't try to be somebody that you're not. Just do what you're good at.
Right.
You know?
And with your experience and again, back to your training and everything, what key activities would you recommend someone wanting to become a chef, or what key activities would you recommend them spend their time doing in wanting to get into this career field with everything that comes with it? What would you recommend?
Well, number one, if you're in high school, there's a lot of schools out there that have culinary programs. Take advantage of that. I'm not talking home ec. I'm talking a culinary program at a tech school or something like that. You know, those are great programs, and you really get a good start. You learn knife safety, you learn food safety, you learn a lot of different things in those programs. And if you want to go a step further than that, get you a part-time job at a restaurant. Like I say, I started working at 11 years old.
Right.
I used to, actually, the restaurant that I worked at, our governor in South Carolina used to eat there every morning.
Wow.
And this was way before he was governor.
Right.
You know, you get to know people, and you get to see firsthand what the business is all about.
Right.
Is it something you really want to invest your life in?
Exactly.
Is it what you're passionate about?
Right.
Because it could be just you've been watching Food Network too long and you think it's all that, you know. But you got to get your hands dirty to really know if that's what you want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And with you getting your hands dirty with all careers or businesses or anything that you want to do, there comes with sacrifice.
Exactly.
I know with myself, with doing this type stuff, you know, like I tell everybody, you know, I may want to go to the beach this weekend, but I may have an interview. I may want to go do something with my daughter, but I have this interview, or I may have to speak somewhere. So what sacrifices have you had to make?
Mostly the sacrifices are family time. And that hurts a lot, honestly. Like I said, I used to be a general manager for IHOP in Lubbock, Texas, and honestly, I was going through a rough patch in my marriage, and that it ended up being the separation that ended my first marriage because I was working so much. And a lot of times it boils down to what employees you can employ. Right now, we're in a huge manpower crisis across the country,
right?
Especially in food service. And there's a lot of theories about why. People are tired of the service field. Mm-hmm. They're tired of being basically humiliated by the public. Mm-hmm. It's low-paying jobs for the most part, unless you're in management. The schedules are erratic, and you get called in a lot for people that call out. Mm-hmm. But the time that you spend at work is so immense that your sacrifice is your personal freedom and your personal time, and your time with your family. So those are the big sacrifices that you make in this field.
Right. Yeah. Right. And with the sacrifices, there's always someone that you can turn to or to get that support. When you face hardships or anything going through either the training or maybe on the job now, who's been your greatest support when facing some hardships or some training, or when you were going through the training?
Honestly, I would say my wife. Honestly, I would say my wife. She is my biggest supporter. Even though I sacrifice a lot of time away, she is my biggest supporter, and I can talk to her about anything. Second to that, of course, I have my network of colleagues that I can talk to, and my administrators. Right. So I don't feel like I'm alone. Right. At any time. It's just those sacrifices have to be made. Right. Right.
Now, have you ever written a book or anything about?
No, I've written some short stories, but never a book. I was a fiction short story writer for a while, but I've never written a book. Yeah.
Okay. If you did write a book, what would you name it?
The days of the life of a chef, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. And it would be one heck of a novel too, because like I say, I started very young in this field, and it's been 35 plus years. I've seen a lot of crazy things in a lot of crazy places. I fed French scientists for NASA in the middle of New Mexico. There's a lot of crazy stuff that I've done through the years that it would be awesome if I did write a book about it, honestly.
Right. Well, hey, I'd love to for you to do it and let me get a copy of it.
I know, right?
See all the stuff that you've learned over the years. That I think that'd be great. Mm-hmm. If you could talk to someone, one person in history to gain inspiration from, who would that be?
Oh, wow. I really don't know. I think it would probably my grandfather. Mm-hmm. Even though I grew up knowing him until I was about 17 or so, he was a wonderful man. Maybe even his father, because I never met his father, but just knowing how my grandfather was, it would have been great to have gotten to know him, because the example that he set in my life early on. So,
great. Yeah, a lot of folks, they go back to their grandparents. They reach back, hey, it's my grandma, it's my grandpa, or whatever. But a lot of those lessons
between my father and my grandfather, they really set the path for me. Even though my father left, him and my mother separated when I was young. I was 11. That's when I started working in restaurants. But and I think that's kind of what attracted me to, because not only did I work in restaurants, and in the summertime I would work in a restaurant in the morning, and then in the afternoons I worked for a law firm as a courier, and I would go. I worked for 5 different attorneys, and I think they pretty much gave me a good, stable, just a stable look on life. Right. And they spent time with me and were good role models. And I got to meet a lot of fabulous people growing up in downtown Columbia that were what I like to call kind of like the founding fathers, but even though Columbia was thousands of years before that, or 1,000 years before that, but these were the guys that were shaping Columbia in the 80s, the 70s and 80s, and they were magnificent people, so.
Oh, okay. Great. Well, Rick, man, you've talked a lot about the realities of the business. You've given some examples of your successes and your failures, and obviously, our goal is to help someone that definitely wants to get into that field. And like you said earlier, television is not reality.
That's right.
If you want to get into this, yeah, there's great money in it, but you got to do the work. So everything that you said earlier, I mean, I was loving it.
Yep.
You brought that energy and everything.
Yep.
But I know for a fact, as I tell a lot of people that give me great stories, that it's going to help someone, and that's the main thing.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. And I appreciate you allowing me again to come here, get the information from you, so we can get this information out to help someone, especially here in the Rock Hill area.
Great.
That, like I said, maybe doubting themselves, but hearing your story, they can get out there and get it moving and get in those schools and do whatever they have to do to fulfill their dream. So thank you so much, man.
Joe, I appreciate it. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.